This episode contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes which may be disturbing to some listeners.
Today, we're bringing you the story of a 9-year-old girl who vanished in the Black Hills of South Dakota on a frigid winter day. And despite years of searching, the question remains, where is Serenity Dennard?
This is APB Cold Case. Here's your host, former Police Chief Mark Spahn.
Our story begins on February 3, 2019, Super Bowl Sunday. Pre-games are in full effect across the country as the New England Patriots, led by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, get ready to take on the Los Angeles Rams in Atlanta. But 1,300 miles away, just outside Rapid City, South Dakota, something tragic's unfolding. That morning, inside the gymnasium of the Black Hills Children's Home on South Rockerville Road, 9-year-old Serenity Dennard makes a fateful decision. It isn't completely impulsive. She's done this before. Lieutenant Paul Stevens began his police career in England. He's now with the Pennington County Sheriff's Office in South Dakota.
She ran. There was her and 5 other juveniles who were in the gym at the facility. One of the other juveniles left the gym, ran around the home, caused a distraction, and Serenity took off out some other doors.
This distraction was calculated.
She'd run away previously. That was she was known for running away. But this specific incident, her and another juvenile had discussed what they were going to do.
Serenity knew what would happen. She'd already tested the system. As staff rushed toward the disturbance, she disappears through an exit door. Chad Dennard is Serenity's dad.
Yep, she tried to convince a kid to go off in this direction, and then she went that direction because she was too smart. Because she knew that, their policy is if they go after this person, the other person has to stay here and can't go after her because there's only 2 people watching her at the time, or a group of them.
Staff members initiate a search. They check buildings and the immediate grounds around the facility, but they don't call police right away.
Because she ran away from the children's home a couple different times, actually. But it was always, she stayed in the children's home proper, and that's why I don't think that they were too excited about it to begin with, because, she would run away into a different building and hide. And she did that with us a couple times.
But it ultimately becomes apparent that they need help looking for Lieutenant Stevens.
So the initial call was that the Black Hills Children's Home, one of their residents had run away, a 9-year-old girl by the name of Serenity Dennard. So Serenity had run from the home around 11:10 a.m. and they didn't call us till about 12:30 p.m.
So that's an 80-minute window. 80 minutes in rural South Dakota in winter. When Serenity walks out the door, the temperature's 13 degrees, and she's not equipped for that type of weather.
She had on a gray long sleeve t-shirt, sweatpants, and snow boots. No hat, no gloves, no coat.
It's not long after she leaves that it starts to snow, and by the time police are called, the temperature's dropped to 10 degrees.
The weather deteriorated very rapidly. In fact, we were out there by around 12:30 and there was a major temperature drop just in the hour we were there, and then the ice and snow came down. Within us being there like 40 minutes, we'd asked for search and rescue to be sent to the area.
By nightfall, temperatures plunge below zero. The situation is desperate. So who is this little girl, and why did she run? Well, Serenity had been through a lot in her short 9 years. According to an article in the Rapid City Journal, her birth parents had both been sent to prison, and she was placed in the foster system. Serenity lived in about 12 different foster homes over a 2-year period. She was adopted at the age of 5 by Chad Dennard and his wife, and in early 2015, the couple divorced.
I ended up having a full physical custody of Serenity after our divorce. And that was a hard time. Here I am, like, dealing with all that divorce stuff. And, here I am, a single dad with 2 kids. Like, We're just going to do it.
Chad was a single father until he met Cassandra.
But I was working at the VA in Fort Meade, South Dakota, outside of Sturgis, and I met my wife there, Cassandra, and she was a rock star. She helped me through so much. So, it was just me, my son, and Serenity, and she took us on, without even thinking twice about it. She never was able to adopt or anything like that, but she was mom.
Cassandra may not have been able to adopt Serenity on paper, but in every way that mattered, she was mom, and they were a family. And when Chad talks about his daughter, you can hear just how big a presence Serenity was in their lives.
She was goofy. She could be goofy. She was a little wild child. Though, like whenever she went into a room, she commanded attention. Like walking into a room, like she just demanded, like, ta-da, Serenity's here.
At 9 years old, Serenity stood 4'7" and weighed 95 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes.
She's a gorgeous, gorgeous little girl, a huge girly girl. She could be a little fashionista. You guys thank you for these questions. A lot of them are just bringing back some really good memories. But yeah, she was a little fashionista. She would put together the weirdest combinations. Just a complete goofball. She had the most beautiful smile. Like she smiled with every ounce of who she is, and her laugh was completely contagious. She had a lot of mental issues, being in the system that long. Every once in a while, you would get a true glimpse of who she really is. And she's just the most beautiful, caring little girl.
As Chad mentioned, Serenity carried some deep trauma. She was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder.
She doesn't have boundaries. It comes off as like any attention is good attention. She has to control. She has to feel like she has to control everything around her because she doesn't want it to control her. Being in the system for 3 years and her life was a mess. And so she felt like this is me. I have to take care of myself. With a reactive attachment disorder, if she starts feeling comfortable someplace, she runs. The feeling of comfort and is alien to her. She doesn't like it, so she runs to get away. She ran away quite a bit, and that was an issue why she ended up in the children's home. It's a extensive therapy session, essentially. It was hard for us to keep her safe anymore.
What Chad's describing wasn't defiance. It wasn't rebellion. It was a response to trauma. Something rooted in those experiences Serenity carried long before she ever had a stable home. To better understand what that diagnosis actually means and how it can shape a child's behavior, we spoke with Alyssa Stolarczyk, a nationally certified school psychologist who did not treat Serenity.
Reactive attachment disorder is a trauma-related condition, often induced by stressors that impact a child in their early development. Typically, kids who experience maybe severe neglect, instability, or just lack of consistent caregiving early on in life. So they struggle to form that initial attachment and that healthy attachment that most people get to be able to develop strong, healthy interpersonal relationships with others. So instead of developing that sense of safety with adults, children with reactive attachment disorder might struggle to trust others. They have difficulty seeking comfort in appropriate ways.
For Serenity, control became survival.
She doesn't connect on a emotional level very well. She has to control everything around her.
People are usually familiar with that fight or flight response. That's really common in kids with this condition. When they encounter stressful situations, and sometimes it may just be spontaneous, there may be no specific trigger, but if there is a stressful situation, children may run away, they may push adults away, or use manipulation or planning to meet a need not because they're being bad. It's just their brain hasn't developed those healthy pathways of seeking attention in healthy ways or being able to communicate with others in a way that gets those needs met more appropriately.
Running away became part of that control. Serenity ran often, from daycare, from school, from home, and sometimes she hid just to see the reaction.
I think she just liked to watch people look for her because she's making somebody do something.
Maybe it was the thrill of the chase or just the escape of the uncomfortable feelings that she was trying to get away from. That running away and seeking that experience was more powerful to her than not. And like I said, nothing too terrible had happened before to kind of stop that cycle of behavior from occurring. She may have just done it again, not really thinking that anything worse could happen.
But this time was different. As Serenity runs from the gym, a woman arrives at the children's home. She witnesses a little girl running away from the facility. No coat, no hat, no gloves. Just a long-sleeve t-shirt, long pants, and snow boots. Lieutenant Paul Stevens.
Obviously, as we expanded our canvas, we start talking to people. We did find one person that had seen a run that was independent of the children's home. There was a grandmother and a child who were dropping off another child at the children's home that day, and they'd seen Serenity running.
And that person is the known last person to see Serenity. She saw her at kind of like there's a little culvert going up onto the road, and she saw Serenity right there. She went off into the woods and was never seen again.
Serenity's dad remembers the phone call. He was at his mom's house that day to watch the Super Bowl.
While I was there, I got the call. And, at first it was, oh, Serenity ran away again. Okay.
Then came news he wasn't expecting. She'd been gone for more than an hour.
And then once I realized that she's been gone for quite a while, and I'm like, oh my God, because the weather.
February in South Dakota is typically one of the coldest months of the year, and windy, snowy conditions are common. Extreme weather could not only be life-threatening for Serenity, it could critically hamper the search. So it's just after 12:30 p.m. when police respond to the scene. They quickly check the buildings and grounds.
Yeah, our responding deputies did actually, to include Serenity's room, right where she lives first. There was initial searches at the home and the immediate area, the immediate roads around, and obviously that expanded as time went on.
There's no sign of her in the immediate area, so search and rescue teams are deployed. But in the short window between Serenity taking off and police being called, a winter storm erupts over the Black Hills. Within minutes, snow erased any possible footprints.
It was approximately 80 minutes between Serenity running, then the staff trying to locate her, failing to do so, and then calling us. Like I said, it's a pretty rural area up in the Black Hills.
It's rough territory, thousands of acres, and now it's rapidly getting covered in snow. It would turn out to be one of the major winter storms of the season.
I wish the National Guard they have search and rescue assets, but because of the snowstorm, they were grounded. They have the FLIR infrared heat, cameras, and it could have been a lot different, but it's circumstances.
The search continued, and volunteers came out in force to help find Serenity.
The work those people put in, like the Rockerville search and rescue, those people are complete rock stars. I was talking with my mother, and this guy, he had his pickup parked kind of by where my mom was parked. She saw this guy come in. He had a big beard, and walk into his pickup. His beard was completely frozen, and he just sat and leaned on the tailgate of his pickup because he was so exhausted he couldn't even get in his pickup. The hours those people logged in Wow.
It all started centrally, you've got the children's home, but if you look at the Black Hills area, it's a vast area that covers like 8,500 square miles of hills and creeks and rivers. And, and some hills are just little rolling hills, others are huge hills, deep woods. It's rough terrain out there in some areas.
According to an article in South Dakota Newswatch, the physical search for Serenity covered more than 6,000 miles of terrain during hundreds of searches.
Somewhere between 200 and 250, which spanned a 2-year period, using hundreds of different agencies, dogs, different entities, you name it. It was intense.
It's that steep. Gullies and canyons, and just traversing it is exhausting. Especially if that search means something to you, it's physically and mentally exhausting. Search and rescue brought out dogs, avalanche dogs even, from Colorado, like the special forces of search and rescue dogs. They picked up on scents, but it was completely random because it's in a valley and the wind blows. It doesn't blow straight, it blows into circles around there.
In addition to the ground searches, the Pennington County Sheriff's Office led an in-depth investigation, working with agencies in and outside of South Dakota, as well as the FBI, checking out more than 370 leads in 37 states. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. And since February 3rd, 2019, every lead has been investigated. And the conclusion keeps circling back to one probability.
I mean, personally, I don't believe she is anywhere other than that in those hills somewhere. The sheer detail that we went into with the investigation surrounding any kind of potential plan to take her out or potential people. We had all the cell phone towers done. We interviewed everyone's that was not just family members, but all the children's home staff, any volunteer groups that went into the homes, anyone that used to work at the home in recent times that may have had contact with her, any family member with any link whatsoever, any sex offender within a 5 to 10 mile radius was grilled. Anyone whose phone number showed up on a cell phone tower was visited with and vetted out. When you put all those factors together, and then you consider it's such a rural area that maybe on a Super Bowl Sunday in bad weather, how many people are driving down that rural road? Maybe 4 or 5 cars an hour. For somebody to confirm that she left and ran away at such a specific time, a completely independent person to say, I saw Serenity running down the road and leaving. And then for her to come across somebody that would have nefarious intentions. I mean, the majority of people, you see a young kid driving down the road, you're going to help and call the police. That's what the majority of people do. So for her to encounter a car would be rare, but for her to encounter a car that would have had nefarious intention would be extremely rare. Plus, one of her behaviors when she runs away, she would hide and watch. That was a known behavior. So, and had done it just the previous week. She would run, she would hide and watch people look for her. And we know that those conditions changed very, very quickly. So it is our belief that she is out there and we need to find her because she got stuck in horrible circumstances. But obviously we can't rule anything out until she's found. And we won't rule anything out, which is why we continue to investigate all these leads.
One question that remains is why the staff of the Black Hills Children's Home waited an hour and 41 minutes to call 911. A report from an investigation conducted by an oversight agency was critical of the response and policies at the Black Hills Children's Home, citing insufficient planning and training for handling runaways in particular. An article by Seth Tupper for the Rapid City Journal cited reports which indicated a failure to follow established procedures and disorganization in their own search. Maybe things would have been different if police were called immediately, but we'll never know. The fact remains that to this day, no sign of Serenity Dennard has been found. No confirmed clothing, no remains, no final answers. Yet.
We've tested various pieces of hair we've come across. We've had lots of different bones analyzed by anthropologists. Is this animal? Is this human? We have done DNA testing for evidence items we found different items of clothing that could maybe be, but never confirmed as. Because you got to look at one of the other things is that day, the weather was so bad. By 8 p.m., it was like 2 degrees, snowing, and we didn't get a thaw till May, maybe. I mean, we had bad weather for a couple of months there. So a lot of the stuff that was found wasn't found till the spring and the summer. But obviously we tested everything we found, but nothing's come back with any evidentiary value so far.
The search hasn't stopped. Lieutenant Paul Stevens told me that the story of Serenity is well known in the area, and he urges anyone with any bit of information to report it.
I think everybody in this area is so aware of this story. It was a big deal. And this vast area is used for hiking, for UTVs, ATVs, for hunting. So if anybody comes across anything, I mean, we get leads all the time. We would just ask that if you hear something or you see something, then you bring it to our attention so we can look into it.
Again, Serenity's dad.
That's my hope in life. That somebody just is out there walking or hunting. That happens quite a bit. Hunters come up on stuff. I pray for that. God, I want answers so bad. Oh my God.
And while they wait for those answers, Serenity's family still hangs on to their special memories.
When she would hug you, like a for real hug, it just filled your soul. She does love me. She just hugged with every ounce of who she is. I have a picture on my phone that my mom took of Serenity sitting on my dad's lap while they're in the movie theater. And it's just a quick picture, but you could just tell like those two were buddies. That was a true Serenity moment where she was just happy as hell.
If you have any information on the whereabouts of Serenity Dennard, investigators want to hear from you. Call the Pennington County Sheriff's Office at 605-394-6115 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. And for a map, timeline, photos, and a blog for this episode, go to apbcoldcase.com.
Thanks for listening to APB Cold Case. Tell us about your cold case at apbcoldcase@spawngroup.com. APB Cold Case is an original Spawn Group production.